Good morning, 8th grade. Time for another geography lesson, and I'm going to have a hard time getting through all that I want to cover today in my 15-minute time limit. But we'll see how much we can get done, and maybe I'll have to make a round two. I don't know. I hope you all are doing well today. It's a beautiful day here in Fayetteville. The sun has come out, and I think the pollen count is down, which means maybe I can stand to be outside a little bit today. There were some storms, I guess, moved through last night and cleaned everything up. Okay, so we are back to Southern Africa. This should be our last video about the southern part of Africa, and then we'll move into the eastern part of Africa for the rest of this chapter. So let's talk about Zimbabwe. We can't talk about Zimbabwe without talking about its major tourist attraction, which is Victoria Falls. Pictured here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in just a minute, but Victoria Falls is on the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, in the northwest corner of this country. This is what it looks like. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. In its high season, which is February and March, so right about now, more than 10,000 cubic feet of water pass over the falls every second. It is enormous. It's about a mile wide and 335 feet tall. It is said that you can see it and hear it 25 miles away. Not that you can see it off in the distance and that, oh, look, there it is, but you can see the vapor coming up from the falls, the steam that comes up from it. So it's just an enormous thing, and it's very, very beautiful. And of course, this is what Robert Livingston found, and he named it after Queen Victoria of England. And it still has that name today. Except, if you live in Zimbabwe, they actually call it an odd name that means the smoke that thunders. Okay, so Zimbabwe gained their independence in 1980. And changed their name. The name had been Rhodesia, which is, of course, named after Cecil Rhodes, who was the guy who wanted to settle all of Africa for England. But it was named Rhodesia. They changed it to Zimbabwe, and they renamed the capital Harare. Zimbabwe has a very unstable government even today. They have a man named Robert Mugabe who served 7 terms as president, mostly by rigging elections and making them work out. Their racial problems in Zimbabwe are just never ending. There is a black majority and a white minority, and they don't get along. They did get a new president in 2017. His name is Mnangagwa, but he got into power by staging a coup, a violent overtake of power. And he's good friends with the guy who served 7 terms. So it's just a country in turmoil. It is an economic disaster. They have a lot of things that they produce, like gold, steel, nickel, stuff like that. But they've got to get a stable government before they can get much further in their lives. All right, Zambia. Zambia was called Northern Rhodesia, and they were granted their independence in 1964, and then they adopted the name Zambia. You do have some mountains that run through there in the eastern part. In the west, they have swamps. Oh, I didn't get everything in there. The country, about 3/4 of the population of Zambia lives in complete poverty, but they are widely accepting of Christianity and have an open door there for ministry in the country of Zambia. Malawi is a landlocked country. They do not have any access to the ocean. Britain also granted them their independence at the same time as Zambia in 1964. but they do have a lake. Even though they don't have access to the ocean, they have Lake Malawi, which is the third largest lake in Africa. It really dominates the whole country. Have one of their biggest exports in Malawi is tropical fish out of Lake Malawi. So if you have a fish tank at home, you might have fish in there that ultimately can be traced back to Malawi. It is one of the world's poorest nations, however. Most of that is because of its location. Like I said, it's landlocked, so they don't have any access to the ocean. They just do not have that many natural resources. It's a very, very difficult place to live. But they do have political stability, unlike Zambia and Zimbabwe. So that political stability does help, and it allows the gospel to be spread. I met some missionaries years ago from Malawi who are ministering there in a very, very difficult country. You can see the house in the background of this picture where the roof is made out of what looks like hay. It looks like it would have to be replaced on a yearly basis. Okay, let's go to a little bit more tropical paradise. Wouldn't we all love to be here right now in the Indian Ocean islands? There are several of these here. France controlled most of them. Most of these islands at one time or another. So there's a heavy French influence all throughout these eastern coast islands of the Indian Ocean, eastern African coast. So many of the people that live on these islands are mixed with French as far as their ancestry goes. They are Creoles of some sort. They're either French mixed with African, French mixed with Indian, or something of that nature. Of course, Madagascar is the most significant one. It's a large, large island. It is Africa's largest island, and the fourth largest island in the world. It is separated from Africa by the Mozambique Channel. And of course, most of us know Madagascar as being famous for their lemurs, which are pictured here, the ring-tailed lemurs. It became a French colony in 1896, gained its independence in 1960. The people there are called Malagese, I believe is how it's said. I'm not 100% sure of that. The capital is Antananarivo. It doesn't really look like a place I would want to live, though. It looks like a place that's pretty destitute. It does have a desert on the far end, southern end of the island. And they've cleared a lot of the forest to be used for growing food. And as I said, the people are a mixture probably of African and Indonesian, which of course is from the Indonesia area, India, and points east of that. One of Madagascar's biggest exports is vanilla. Madagascaran vanilla is prized worldwide because of its flavor. And it is the world's leading exporter of vanilla. It is harvested by hand from the seed of the fruit of a vine. That's how vanilla grows. It grows on a vine. The original Coca-Cola contained pure vanillin from Madagascar, making the Coca-Cola Corporation a leading purchaser of vanilla from Madagascar. And then years ago, and this was before you guys were around and knew better, Coke changed their formula and made New Coke. And that when they went to New Coke, it didn't have that same vanilla in it from Madagascar. So they almost collapsed the entire economy of the country and ended up having to switch back. They switched back because nobody liked the flavor of New Coke. It was really gross. So they returned back to the original vanillin. But in the meantime, Madagascar suffered. We wouldn't think of something as simple as that as having such a big impact, but little things can be a big life changer for different countries. Let's talk about Comoros. These are four main islands, and they're volcanic, meaning they are formed by volcanoes. So they're not always very good at growing things because they don't have a whole lot of soil on the top of them. It's a whole lot of rock. These are northwest of Madagascar. The largest island here is Grand Comoro, and it has a volcano at the southern end of it. 99% of the people in Comoros are Muslim. They gained their independence in 1975, but one of the islands voted to remain French, and there's still some debate about, is it a Comoros island or is it a French holding? Comoros still claims the island, but France controls it. So, either way. So anyway, with 99% of the population being Muslim, they have strict restrictions on Christians and the spread of the gospel in Comoros. It's a beautiful place, though. The Seychelles. Okay, Seychelles are 115 tropical islands sprinkled along the northeast part of Madagascar. Only one of them has a town. One out of 115 islands has a town, and it is the town of Victoria. It's so beautiful. They obtained their independence in 1976. So what is that? 44 years ago. And they've had some attempts to overthrow their government by rebels, but nobody's been successful yet. They are descendants of French settlers and African slaves that those French settlers brought with them. So the French moved to the island with their slaves and then had babies. So they are a mixed race of people. Okay. Mauritius. Mauritius was the old home of the dodo bird. It is a volcanic island east of Madagascar. Gained its independence in 1968. It has a lot of industry going on, including banking and tourism, as well as regular industry. And as I said, it was the home of the dodo bird. It was first discovered there in 1505 by the Portuguese. And then they hunted them for food. And animals brought to the island, like dogs, pigs, and rats and cats, ate their eggs of the dodo bird. So by the end of the 17th century, it was considered extinct. There is quite a bit of religious freedom on this island, but the government favors Hinduism because a good number of the people, about half, are of Indian descent, so they practice Hinduism. Okay, I did make it through, so that's great. I am planning to schedule that Zoom early next week to help us review for our test. I might do it this week yet, though, still, just to get the experience of it. So we'll see how that goes. I hope you all are doing well. Look for a quiz to go along with this video, and you may use your notes if you take notes during the video. Okay? See you later.